It was a terrible, terrible shock. I mean, I was diagnosed 8 years ago. What is it now? Well, 2009. So I was diagnosed in 2002, and I was at the point of where I was a walking dead person. But nobody ever suggested to test me because I wasn't what they call an at-risk category. And I had all the signs and symptoms, which I now know are the signs and symptoms, but I didn't know then. And funnily enough, my partner, who died 2 years before, like suddenly, of liver cancer, you know, had all those signs and symptoms as well. But I had no idea. Nobody ever thought to test me. He was what you call a very respectable man, you know. So you know, people just don't think that people that are rich or have got OBEs or, you know, whatever, don't get HIV, which is ridiculous because HIV can and does affect everybody, anyone and everybody. Well, it doesn't affect everybody, sorry, I said that wrong. It can affect anybody. It was very hard at the beginning because, as I said, it was a complete shock to me, and I was a walking dead person. And it was actually a homeopathic doctor who diagnosed me. I've been to my own doctor many, many times with all the signs and symptoms, with the oral thrush and the itchy rashes and the, you know, I was weak. I was sculpting at the time because I'm an artist, but I was also sculpting. I'd lift my sculptures, they'd fall on the floor, you know, but I'm a bit of a battler because I'm an artist, so I kept going. And then he died. The minute I told him the signs that my partner had died of liver cancer, you know, 2 years ago, like very suddenly, he put two and two together right away and sent me for a test. But the other thing, I'd also been in hospital with that pneumonia, although that was in Spain, and I was nearly dead. So when I was diagnosed, I had a viral load of 2 million and a T-cell count of 23. So, you know, I was just like a walking dead person. But during that time, whilst I was, you know, had I been sexually active during that time, that's a dangerous time. That's when I could have passed it on to, you know, because I had no idea that I was HIV positive. I had a viral load of 2 million, and, you know, but because my partner had died, I was broken-hearted. I wasn't sexually active. But had I been, that's the danger time, and this is what people don't realise, that the people on the medication and that know their status and are taking medication and the viral loads undetectable are less dangerous than a person on the street who doesn't know their status and could be walking around with a high viral load. The main thing for me living with HIV is the stigma. It's a huge, huge issue for me. And I've seen it firsthand. I've suffered from it firsthand. And for 4 years I lived with HIV. I was lucky that I could tell my mum. My mum was 83 at the time and she was my best support and she was fabulous. But the other thing about it is, of course, when you do tell people, it's a great way for them to carry as well. You know, I didn't realise that. So if you're having to keep it a secret, and you tell your sister and you tell your mum, and they also have to keep it a secret, you know, and so they're suffering and carrying the weight of it too. So the stigma thing is the one thing that I really want to try and, you know, smash.
We talked earlier about your son and the impact and the time in terms of trying to come to terms with whether that was a good move or a bad move, and how you were going to tell him or not tell him. Would you like to share that with us?
Well, that was the very hardest thing for me to do. I really struggled with that for 4 years. I couldn't bring myself to tell him. You know, I've had problems with my son over the years, you know, to teenage, you know, one thing and another, but I didn't want to tell him for so many reasons. I felt ashamed. You know, I felt this sense of false shame. I felt that if I told him...
Why did you feel ashamed?
It's just this internalised stigma that you have yourself. You somehow feel that you brought it on yourself, or, you know, why have I got this? It's just because of societies or whatever, you know. I've since learned, but you do feel stigma yourself. You turn it on yourself somehow. And I thought, he's going to think, oh, his mother's got HIV. You know, the shame to his friends, he wouldn't want to tell him. But the main thing was that I thought it would affect him, that it would make him maybe nervous of having relationships. Maybe thinking, like, if my mum's got it, everybody's got it.
I think it's fair to say that the average adolescent hormone rush had overcome most challenges.
You think so? Yeah, you probably would. You probably would. But that was the hardest for me. So for 4 years I lived this life of the invisible, there's a term for it, it's invisible women. And I know many women that also live like that because they don't want to hurt their children. It's because they don't want to hurt their children. They don't want it to affect their children, you know. And for any mother, that's the most important thing. So I held back and I kept it hidden for 4 years. But it was terrible, terrible time for me. And also my mother and my sister that knew, and my close friends that knew, but they had to keep quiet too. And it's a big weight for them to bear. But when I finally told my son, it was strange. I just reached the limit one day, and he said, I said, stop it, you're making me ill. And he said, what's wrong with you, Mum? And I said, do you want to know what's wrong with me? Okay, I'll tell you what's wrong with me. And once I told him, it all came pouring out. The relief was just immense. And the one thing it's taught me, living with HIV, is that I accept people more now. You know, it's taught me, the main thing with my son was because he accepted me unconditionally, you know, and he still loved me, I could accept him unconditionally for what he was and not what I wanted him to be. And our relationship changed from that moment on.